Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Dr. Bobby Huynh, and let's queer South Florida and Florida. National LGBTQ Museum mobilizes 1990's-Style Act-up movement to fight attacks. The Stonewall National Museum Archives and Library is calling for a new era of activism inspired by the Act-up movement of the 1980s. The National LGBTQ Museum is mobilizing communities to counter what it calls a direct attack on constitutional rights and freedoms. Robert Kesten, president of the Stonewall Museum, declared in a statement, quote, "Today we face a different threat, but one that is far greater than any virus. It is the government's outright attack on our constitutional rights and freedoms, ignoring the rule of law, rewriting history, and violating the confidence between American citizens and our government," end quote. Act-up was formed in response to the AIDS crisis, forcing the U.S. government to take action as thousands died. Kesten says that the same energy is needed today to resist efforts to roll back queer rights. He calls on queer organizations, civil rights groups, labor unions, and individuals to stand together. The museum urges protests and even a nationwide economic shutdown, stating, "No planes in the skies, no trains, no cars or trucks on the roads." The rallying cry remains, "Silence equals death." The declaration of an act-up approach to what is occurring in America against the LGBTQ community is a clear expression of frustration with what our traditional LGBTQ advocacy organizations have delivered so far in 2025. Act-up was the LGBTQ community's last stand for awareness of the AIDS crisis to America's hearts and minds. For more information, supporters can contact stonewall-museum.org. Well, I am not old enough to witness firsthand what Act-up is, but we all know very well because first of all, I studied the movement as part of my doctoral dissertation. But when, Act-up was a very radical protest movement to disrupt events, to disrupt what is happening in order to express frustration that LGBTQ people, especially gay men at the time, was treated as invisible. During the AIDS crisis, no one wanted to talk about it. No one, the religious right was celebrating our deaths, but the mainstream media and the people in government were just basically taking a blind eye to us. They just want us to all die off, and then the problem would probably go away. But it doesn't work that way. We stage protest. We put out a quilt. We make sure that we are visible and heard.
Yeah, even though I was a very, 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 I must stress, very young man back then, I do remember Act-up. While I was not a formal member of Act-up, I supported them. I witnessed them in action. I marched in many gay pride parades in New York City and New Jersey. I've done marches on Washington, 1987, 93, marches on the State House in New Jersey. So I think it's very important. I applaud Robert Kesten for initiating this. I think it's been something that's been on the top of many of our minds. And I think that going after the economic, that's a peaceful protest. They need to see how aware we are, how aware our allies are and supportive they are, that we're a force not to be messed around with. We're not the kids in the playground that we were maybe in some cases when we were growing up and we were isolated or picked on. So I highly, highly encourage people to look for opportunities and keep an eye on the pulse of what's going on. And that means that if people are backing out of events, they should know about it, write them. Mm-hmm. A lot of companies on their websites have a place for commentary, and we need to be visible. I can't stress that enough.
No, I hear you, and I only remember the rare report I would see in the news as a young child, but I am very glad that Stonewall Archive is talking about this. I think there's a few different things we have to unpack in this all. First and foremost, why did Act-up come about? Because there were no way to go through the legitimate processes in the government to actually create change. And that's a very scary thing to admit to ourselves, but we need to. We need to admit that right now. There is no way to legitimately create change within this current administration.
You can't sugarcoat it.
That's right. You have to use civil disobedience, activism, and so I'm glad that Stonewall's calling it out. I guess my only biggest difference between my opinion and Stonewall is, Stonewall's like, the LGBTQ groups haven't done anything for us this year. And I think if we did a look at the last 50 years, it's a little hard to say how much they've really done at the federal level. But I don't want to go too deep into that. But looking at the other part of it, like, Acti-up was an came about organically. So I'm not sure if nonprofits calling for it helps, but I also don't think it necessarily hurts. And I also think that, our time, this is an example of, like, not just within LGBTQ activism, but the whole progressive left of Genghis Khan in politics is leaderless right now. I mean, like, people, I see in the news that people are burning Tesla dealerships all the time. I'm like, yeah, because they have no idea how else to express their frustration right now.
Yes.
And you need these groups. I also will add that, like, I think we also need to look at groups like the Black Panthers and the John Brown Gun Club and defensive militias, because you're seeing a lot of hate being directed at queers and non-white people. There was a video that's been going around of Black business owners in one town formed a militia to protect a school because the Klan would come, has been coming. Racists have been going to protest it every day. And like, all right, you're going to do that, we're going to show up and make sure you don't hurt anybody. I think we need to start thinking in these different activist ways more now.
And also, to complement that, Alex, is to protect our trans brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I think, I hope that we're wrong about it, but, I know personally several people who are afraid, who are very confident people in our community, their leadership, and I think one of the ways too is to make our voice heard through the arts, because we are the creative people. I think we write better than many artists out there. We perform, we're out there, and we lead in the creative communities. So.
But we have to go a little bit further.
Absolutely.
There are Republican members of Congress right now who are outing trans people on social media, and they are getting death threats.
Absolutely.
We have to have ways of protecting each other now.
We need to fight fire with fire at this point.
Absolutely.
Right-wing people have botnets and troll farms. We need to have our own. Why do we not have our own? We should have our own thousands-men-strong troll farm and bots to make fun of them every single day on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever. We basically see those spaces because we are polite society, but the other side is not fighting politely.
No.
But that in-person activism, I think, is so important, because that's been the scariest thing. You haven't seen much opposition to Trump. Trump's a coward. He backs down from a fight, and no one has given him a fight yet.
There was a nationwide protest of veterans against the cuts of VA, except that no mainstream media organization, not even local news channel, covers that stuff. And that's because 5 companies control almost every single local news network, and they do not want to rock the boat because Trump is going to take their broadcast license away, as he stated. I mean, at this very moment, he is trying to basically shut down any kind of channel that he doesn't like or critical of him.
Well, did Acti-up get news in their first protest? I don't recall them getting a ton of media at the beginning.
I came from the New York metropolitan area, so they did. And actually, we were quite fortunate to have allies with the 3 major networks. I try to tap in, now that I've been a Florida resident for over 5 years, and into what's going on there. And I've asked my brother, who's a physician in Manhattan, hey, what's the pulse there? But, there's still, I think for people who are allies, including my brother, there's a sense that we're in a very surreal situation. Not just, my brother's heterosexual, but he feels that things are really out of place, and that we need to get back on track and come back to reality and have politicians, our president, represent everyone.
And right now, I mean, speak of boycotts or economic punishment against those who manipulate the government.
Yes.
We're talking about Tesla here.
Yes,
people are burning up Tesla. But the thing is, though, White House is lockstep with them, because the White House press secretary, it was the incoming AG, Pam Bondi, is now trying to declare boycott of Tesla to be quote-unquote illegal, and burning down Tesla is now domestic terrorism. Apparently, if Honda burns down, it's not. But
Well, and then we have the same people, the president doing, shutting the light switch off on things he doesn't like we were just mentioning earlier. So I think we do need to put our foot forward and do wherever we feel comfortable. But I think all of our gay, lesbian, and trans brothers and sisters and allies need to move forward, but we do need to start, I think, nominating or encouraging leadership within our communities.
That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ story.